So lovely to be with you. Another week has passed. So, in tonight's session, I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about myself and my healing journey. I realize I've been coming on here every Tuesday for Meditation Tuesday, sharing information, my passion for energy healing, and y'all don't know that much about me. What my credibility is, why I do what I do. And so let's open up the can of worms, where it starts for me 15 years ago is when I started my holistic healing journey. My initiation, you could say, to become a healer, to exist as a light worker, where I was hit by a car by a drunk driver and suffered from, or was diagnosed with, suffered from definitely a traumatic brain injury. And I want to share 3 of the very essential tools that I learned navigating my path to recover from my traumatic brain injury. I also have a powerful, transformative exercise, of course, to teach you that anyone and everyone can do. It just takes a few seconds. And I think it is how we can keep ourselves strong physically with our immunity, avoid chronic illness by doing this exercise. So stick with me so I can share that with you. Again, I'm quite a private person, so it's good for me to begin to open up and share more about my experience when I was hit by this car, when I suffered from this traumatic brain injury. So I was on track to finish business school. And one night, in the blink of the eye, as I mentioned, I wake up in the hospital. I'm in a wheelchair with a bleeding brain. My path has corrected its course. And I take a break from my senior year of college, and I come home and begin to heal. And here I am lying in this bed, and I realize that I have no thoughts in my head. And a gift for that is that I wasn't able to have ruminating thoughts or anxious thoughts about the future yet, because my mind was completely clear. Another way of thinking of it is like I was thrown into the darkness, unable to see the light at the end of the tunnel, surrounded by trauma to go and navigate my healing journey. And so I begin it. And I've learned some valuable tools. And the first one is to be your own best friend when you're going through trauma. And the way that I learned this tool is that prior to the accident, I still pursued it, but was on track to go into the fashion industry. And so I'm in cognitive therapy, right, in this wheelchair. And the therapist was telling me to do word retrieval, which is an exercise you do to heal your brain. A way of thinking of a brain injury is it's like if all of your processes, your thoughts, the organization of your brain is in a filing cabinet. You have a brain injury, it's like you pick up all those files and you throw them onto the floor. And that my physical intelligence is learning to reorganize my way of thinking. And so I'm in this session and the therapist is saying, okay, start to name things that you would wear. And so I say, shirt, jacket. It's being timed, by the way. And then I say, shirt again. And in that moment, my inner critic came in and it was telling me, gosh, you want to go pursue the fashion industry and you can't name more than 2 garments to wear. You're going to fail. How are we going to do this? And in that same moment, It was like my higher self, my heart self came down through me and said, at that time, I went by my first name, Courtney, said, "Sweet Courtney, we've been hit by a car. Our brain was bleeding. It could still be bleeding. We've got to be on the same team if we're going to get through this." So in that moment, I realized two things. One, I realized that the brain and the mind are separate because my inner critic was still there. And also I teamed up. In that moment, I shook hands with myself and we were a team. So if you're experiencing trauma, if you're going through the dark night of the soul, be your own best friend, cheerlead yourself through it. You know, if you find yourself picking at yourself or judging yourself that you should do more or be better, tell the part of you what's going on. As much as you can, speak the truth. When you are scared, say that you're scared. When you think that the situation you're in sucks, say that it sucks. And then support yourself. Remind yourself how good of a job you're doing. Try to give yourself a compliment at least one a day, especially at night when you're in bed, saying, "We made it through another day. Good job." And something I learned, I mean, I'm right here with you when I was first going through my traumatic experience, but I've got 15 years under my belt. And so I also learned a really nice technique too. When you finish looking at yourself in the mirror, we can all have our critic come out then, finish by looking at yourself in the eyes. It's a great opportunity to say something affirming to yourself. Good job. You're doing great. I love you. I'm here for you. Maybe sometimes we even have to apologize to ourselves. I'm sorry that you're experiencing this deep sadness right now. I'm sorry that so much has been taken from you at this moment, but stick with it. You're going to be okay. Little ways that we can encourage ourselves really supported me through my healing journey. Absolutely. And then for the second for the second method, for the second tip is to fall into your faith. And I'm private about my journey because, like I mentioned, I was initiated into this healing world where it was becoming very clear that I had little control over where I was going, but I was continually put on the tables with these healers, with these masters, with these consciousnesses that were opening me up to experience, connect with the invisible. And this was all progressively over time, of course. And I remember that when I realized I was depressed for the first time, I was like, I've been hit by a car and have a brain injury. I don't feel too hot. And so I went to find a therapist. And I found this psychiatrist, and I'm in there for my first session, and she is asking me about family dynamics, with my father. And I'm sitting there being like, "Lady, I have a brain injury. This is what I need to be talking about." We finished our session. I left very resentful, never went back there. And I connected with this healing woman, a spiritual guide who I still work with to this day. So I go to her and I say, "I'm not doing too hot, but I can't cry. I'm all locked up. I don't know what to do." And so she welcomed me in to imagining angel wings holding me. Or when I was walking down, I was living in Boston at the time. I had my brain injury, and then that happened in September. And then that January, I went back to college to reclaim my identity and to graduate. My first job was really healing. Second job was school. Took one class at a time because I only had like 6 more classes to take to graduate. But anyways, here I am walking down Commonwealth Avenue of all places, and I begin to welcome in my angels behind me walking. And then that's when I felt safe enough to begin to cry. And back to point number one of being your own best friend, welcome the tears wherever they come. It is the most important thing to grieve. And I've gotten pretty good at crying in public because I needed to release that grief. So whatever your faith is, fall into it. You know, we really find our faith when we're in the darkness because we have no other options. So welcome it in, fall into your angels. When you go through trauma, it's because you are meant to experience a deeper unfolding for yourself. And so keep trusting the process and asking for help, welcoming prayer, and connecting with nature, where I experience a lot of my divine connection with nature. And so, gosh, back to that Commonwealth Avenue, walking down that street, here I am allowing myself to cry. And then I remember looking up and it was a full moon. And then jumping 30 days forward, doing the exact same thing, welcoming the tears, walking down Commonwealth Ave, and the moon is full. And in that moment, I realized that 30 more days has passed. And I'm that much further along on my healing journey. So that's when I got to know the moon, using it as a time tracker. As when you're going through trauma, you don't know when it's going to end. You're thrown into the darkness. But one of the best things is that time moves forward. And time can do its work, and just by surrendering a little bit more into the rhythms of nature, with the moon, with the seasons, letting the seasons and the rhythms be your time tracker. I didn't know when I was going to get better. And I would been to so many doctor visits. And what's so funny is that when you go to a doctor, you normally know what's wrong. They, say you have a hurt knee. You go in and they say, oh, what's wrong? I say, well, my knee's hurting. If I bend it, it aches, or I'm unable to run. But when you have a traumatic brain injury and you go to a doctor, they ask you that same question. What's wrong? What are your symptoms? But I'm unable to communicate it because I can't retrieve words. It's very difficult to communicate my thoughts, the little ones I'm having at that time. My mind is still there to tell this guy that he's a jerk. How could he even ask me that kind of question? But of course, I can't communicate that. But so what I'm trying to get to is I ended up finally getting a doctor that knew what I needed. And so I was able to put all of that onto him, but understand that my doctor knew what I needed, so I could give everything over to my faith and trust the process. Literally smell the flowers. And I remember having another moment when I realized that there's so much pain in this world. So many of us are experiencing deep pain. We all have our own wounds. We are all experiencing trauma in our own way, or many of us are. But there's more beauty. And so with nature, the sun rises every day. Look under the stars. Give your pain to the earth so she can heal you. So just to recap, if you're going through trauma, you're going to get through it. Be your own best friend. Be your best cheerleader, shutting down the judgments so that you can unite with yourself to heal, to get through it. Fall into your faith whatever that is for you. For me, it was being held by my angels. But God has a way to speak to you when you're experiencing trauma, when you're in the dark. And then the third one is to commune with nature. The earth is our mother. She holds us literally at every moment of our existence. So let her hold you during this time. One more story is I'm, 8 years down the road now of my healing journey. And I was on a homestead, beautiful Heartland Farm in Kansas. And I every night went out to watch the sunset. And I would just sit there and watch the sunset. And later I read something that says that watching the sunset is healing the soul. And through our trauma, I had to heal my brain, we have to heal our brains. We also have to heal ourselves on a soul level, put ourselves back together. And the third one, which leads into the bonus feature, which I'm so excited to share, is our hearts. When we experience trauma, we go through so much heartbreak, where in a moment's time, your reality has completely shifted. You're in a world where you have to recover, but the world of everybody else, your other world, keeps moving. Life keeps going regardless of how much pain you're in. And when you're experiencing a lot of pain, close friends, or you think you're close friends, can't be there for you, right? So for myself, I'm sure for other people that go through trauma, I've lost a lot of friends, which caused incredible heartbreak. I also made room for incredible new people to come into my life to support me through my trauma. And of course, I had amazing people stay as well. But back to the heartbreak. There's a lot of heartbreak that comes with trauma. So it's like you have this eruption of pain. For me, it was my brain injury, this accident, but then also many bombs still go off, right? Like I said, through relationships, through maybe for me, I had to finish school and go then out and go into corporate, which again can be very disappointing at times. So life keeps moving and we have to keep our heart strong. So the exercise, I want to keep talking about it, and I will, but I want to share it with you, is flexing your heart. How do I flex my heart? So imagine like flexing your muscles, right? When you weight lift, exercising is a great way to beat depression. Number one way, because our body is thinking about rebuilding muscle, and give it a job versus trying to manage the stress, the cortisol, whatever triggers depression, the sadness. It has a job to get us out of it. And so when we flex our heart, which is the strongest tissue in the body, the strongest organ in the body, we are strengthening our whole self. So just like you flex your arms, flex your heart, maybe even flexing your abdomen. Just flex your heart and then relax. Yep. Now flex your heart again. Doing this little exercise or this major exercise that's super simple to do is going to keep your physical body strong. Okay? Because when we experience heartbreak, that's what defeats the heart. And when the heart is defeated, we manifest heart disease. In my work with clients, I've seen a correlation between a broken heart and breast cancer. And so we can release the trauma just by strengthening the heart, knowing that it's doing far more than we can even imagine. Okay, so keep your heart strong. You're going to get through this. Thank you for listening to my story about trauma and healing through trauma. And I look forward to sharing more stories with you about what I experienced through my dark night of the soul. And I want to leave you with just one thought, where we're going through a very challenging time right now. if you can experience this much darkness and this much pain and despair, it means you also can experience that much love and that much light and bliss. Be well. I'll see you next Tuesday. Namaste.